Welcome everyone to the 209 Journey podcast. My name is Luis. Before we get started, I just wanted to invite everyone listening right now. If you are not following us yet on our social media, please give us a follow. If you visit our Facebook page, you can find us at the 209 Journey. You can also search for that on Facebook and you'll be able to find it there. Also on Twitter, we are at the 209 Journey. So please give us a follow on both of those platforms. I like to share whenever we post new episodes, and I am also going to be sharing anything going on in the community, things to do in the 209, all those different things. I am going to be sharing all those on social media. So if you're someone who lives here, you'll have different things that will be on your timeline now that are different things you could do around here. Or if you're someone listening outside of the 209, then great. We're going to try and give you a reason to visit us sometime whenever you get a chance, whenever you're passing by. We'll give you that one reason because I want you all who are listening now, who have never been to our 209, to visit, whether it's Modesto, which I am going to be biased because that is my hometown, or any other awesome city that we have here in our area. Please, that's one of my goals of this show is to have you visit one of our different cities and towns that we have around here. If you've never really visited them, or maybe you've passed by 99 or I-5 and you just haven't been able to visit them. So yes, please check that out on there. Eventually, I might be doing some live interviews on there as well. So be on the lookout for those. And those might only be live interviews that I do on social media only and not ones that are on the podcast. So you definitely want to follow one of those two pages so you find out when those happen and when those are going to be happening so you can join. So thank you so much to everyone who has followed us. And also want to ask if you could please do me one quick favor. And that is if you can share this podcast with at least one friend, that would mean so much to me as I try to grow this show as well. So please share with them the name of the podcast, share with them the link to our podcast page that has all the platforms. Let them know that the 209 Journey podcast is here. I would really appreciate that. And if you're able to leave reviews, so wherever you do leave reviews, please leave me a review. One of those places that I know is pretty popular is Apple Podcasts. So if you'd like to leave a review there, that would be amazing. Please leave a review there. Or if you're not ready yet, all good. Whenever you're ready, please leave me a review there. That would mean a lot. And if you have any ideas for future shows, or if you have any potential future guests, or if you're listening now and you have a story to tell us and you live in the 209 or you moved to the 209, then please send me a message on Facebook or Twitter and we'll get you on the show and, we'll highlight your story and have you on here. Let me go ahead and introduce my third guest of this show. Really excited to have this special guest tonight. It's the first time that I'm actually talking to anyone who is a mayor. So really, really interesting stuff. And even more so because she is the mayor of not just any town, but my hometown, Modesto, California. And she grew up around here as well. Even went to my same high school, Davis. So really awesome stuff. Really great to have you here on the podcast, but let me go ahead and welcome you here to the 209 Journey podcast. Sue Zwahlen. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I appreciate the time that you're taking to interview me.
Awesome. Hey, I appreciate your time too. I know that, you must be really busy, a lot of things going on, especially in a more normal year, right? We're going all back to hopefully normality. I mean, I guess you can't really predict the future anymore, right? After last year, but it looks like things are getting better. And at least we're all able to go outdoors, be able to enjoy all the things that we can enjoy here in our hometown as well. So great stuff. So let me go ahead and start off by asking you, I know that you grew up here in the Valley. You're a fourth generation, right? Californian from Portuguese and Swiss German immigrant families. Tell me more about, how was it growing up here in the Valley?
Oh, I loved it. I grew up actually just a couple of blocks from where we live now, where we raised our 6 children. My parents were Modesto High School graduates, 1944, and actually both sets of my grandparents lived here. They had dairy farms, which is typical of immigrant families coming here to the Valley. And so I grew up in my neighborhood with my parents and my grandparents close by, spending every holiday with families. My aunt and uncle were here and cousins. And so we just, had a great life. It's here in the college area. So my childhood days were very often spent at Graceda Park. They had parks and recreation directors there during the summer, that is. Every day, the neighborhood friends would go over there and there'd be games and we'd play on the playground equipment. Spent a lot of time outdoors, roller skating, just playing ditch with all the neighborhood friends. There was an empty vacant lot, so it was kind of like the sand lot. There'd be pickup baseball games. It was just a really great childhood here in the Valley. And it's what I still love about Modesto, that we still, in some ways, we're a big city with that small town hospitality, as I say, and feel. And so in many ways, it hasn't changed. Of course, in a lot of other ways, it has. But so I grew up with, great family life, great friends, just a fabulous school experience. I met my husband in high school. We were seniors at Davis High School, and we started dating. And we just celebrated our 45th wedding anniversary on July 17th. So I talk about all sorts of experiences growing up here. He came here when he was 3 years old, and he's the oldest of 8 children. So there's, we just have a lot of family, friend connections. And then, as I said, we had 6 children that we raised here. So they grew up in the same neighborhood. So it's a pretty cool story when you think about that. I think there's a lot of security in that, actually. And this is my city, my town, my place, and I absolutely love it.
Wow, that's really amazing. Congratulations on that. I mean, it's really awesome when you hear those stories, right? Ever since high school, that's really cool.
Right. I might add too that my father was a postal worker. He retired from the Postal Service, so he delivered mail and then worked as a supervisor at the end of his career. And my mother was the secretary at St. Stanislaus Catholic Church on 709 J Street, the building downtown, for almost 40 years. So we do have a lot of, strong connections with old-time Modesto families. And it's so interesting now because some of my grandchildren are playing, even with my parents' friends, what would be like their great-great-grandchildren. And now they're friends. So there's just these, generational connections that we have here that I think makes Modesto a very unique place to live.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. I actually went to that church when I was like younger, right? When I was a child. We went there a couple of times, I remember. And it's definitely one of those churches that really stands out, right? Because it's right as you get off the freeway. And I remember going there a couple of times. So, wow. It's really
beautiful, right? And I'm referring to the one on J Street, 709 J Street, the older building. Mm. It's just incredibly beautiful. But a lot of memories there. And growing up in our beautiful city with trees. I'm just looking out my window, all the trees that we have, and we're trying to help plant more trees. And it's just my life, really. This city has been my life. And I'm really grateful for everyone here. And they've enriched my life and have cared for my family and taught us all and have played a big part in our lives.
That's really great. And as you were mentioning Graceda Park, right? I think initially, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, right? But that was meant to be like one of those parks that was really like a landmark of the city, right? The place where like a lot of things happen. And to this day, I know that they do the summer concert series, I believe, right on this. I don't know if that's still ongoing, but.
I have great memories of that. I tell people that I remember a day when there was the Friday night concerts and there would be maybe 10 or 12 or 20 people there. And Mrs. Wright would be there with her snow cone truck. And we would all look forward to that. But it's right. It is a beautiful park and is known. I believe the same designers of Golden Gate Park in San Francisco designed Grace Ada Park.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was two women, Grace and Ada, who had the vision and made the park happen. So I've been grateful for them and for other women in my life that, of course, I never knew them, but are great examples to women everywhere to have a dream and a desire and go for it, which is kind of what I did in this election and what brings me to today. So it's all connected, and it's who we are.
Well, I learned something new today. I actually, all this time I thought Grace Ada was just like someone's name, right? Like that was what they were called. But wow, I did not know that was two people who combined their name.
That's who, Grace and Ada.
Well, interesting. That's really, really cool. Yeah, I've had the chance to go to that park a couple of times, and I think that there's some work that we could still do, right, to bring it back to how it used to be made more, and I hope, right, that more of that work can be done, because that place, if we can get more events going on there, more things going on, it brings more traffic to the downtown area, and it's so convenient, right, because you just get off the freeway and it's not that far right there, right? You just pass a couple of lights and you're at a good spot, plenty of parking, right? Because it's so big. And so I'm glad that I see more things happening there as time goes on. And I'm like, yeah, we need to keep that park. That park is historic, and we need to make sure we preserve it for as long as we can.
Right. Yeah. And I think that there's, a lot of people that are talking about the arts. Just last night, I was at an event at Brad and Nancy Hahn's. They live right by Grace Ada Park, actually. And the Stanislaus Arts Council is looking to revitalize their group. And really, there was a lot of people there that represent dance, drama, opera, all the artistic means that we have to develop these programs and shows. And I think that it's going to happen. There's going to be more. We already have so much here in the Valley that a lot of people are not aware of. But when I was campaigning, and still today, I probably talk to dozens of people every day about these very topics. And I remember one man said that he moved here from the Bay Area, I think it was about 7 years ago, and he just could not believe the arts, the level of arts that we have here, our own ballet, our own symphony, our own opera. All of these things, he said he tells all of his friends from the Bay Area to come here because Modesto has it all. So I think that a lot of it's just getting the word out and, producing more shows and highlighting it so that we can all take advantage and enjoy that. And I think it improves the quality of life for everyone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. More things to do, more things to learn, right? I think it'd be nice if there was some plays that they did on there too. And we didn't have to always just go to the Gallo Center for the Arts, right? But have something more outdoorsy, right? You get to, right, be out and hopefully it's not too hot, right? But yeah, I'm assuming it'd probably be more later at night, but just have more things going on.
And I know there's Friday nights at 10th and J, outdoor music. And then the other night, my husband and I said, you have to go to A&W for a root beer float. Ooh. Once during the summer, we drove down there, live music. Someone was singing, there was music playing. So, we live close to downtown, so we're there a lot. And there's a lot of things happening down there. But my family was so involved through the years with athletics. I mean, my husband, his mother was a piano teacher, and the arts and music were a big part of their lives. And our 6 children all played 2 instruments and did chorus. Music was a big part of our life. Eventually, our family, but him and the rest of our children got very involved in athletics. So that kind of is what we spent most of our time on. However, I always attended whenever I could any arts events and have just a great appreciation for any and all activities. In the school district, they can be called extracurricular or co-curricular. To me, they're co-curricular. It's all a part of life and enriching it and making our world just a better place to live. And, you never know. A child's interest needs to be wide and have lots of options so that they can explore. And you never know what they're going to choose or end up being. So it's all really important to our community.
Yeah, I like that idea of calling it just a co-curricular. Extracurricular just makes it seem like, oh, it's just an option. You could take it or not, but they probably should. I don't know if things have changed since I've gone to school, right? But they probably should be adding more artsy classes, right, to that curriculum where you have to take them. And as much as to some, they might feel like, oh, yeah, I might not be as much of an artsy person. Like you said, they might discover that, wait, you know what? I actually do like acting. This is actually pretty fun. I actually want to do this. Or even if it's not just that, but I feel like even if it's just one of those things where they just take the class and learn that, it helps you in so many other different ways, even if you're not trying to be an actor, but it also helps you, right, with like public speaking, not being shy to be like in front of other people. And it basically puts you in that spot where it kind of opens you up, right, to uh, improve and ends up maybe helping you out in the future, right, when
Mhm.
you choose your own career path. So yeah,
Sure. It's all important. My husband, until he ran his first race in track and everyone discovered how fast he was. I mean, he was first chair clarinet in the band. He was, participated in all the choral activities, has a beautiful voice. So, throughout your life, we can do a lot of different things. I took piano lessons here locally, like I said, and I've noticed I helped in all of my children's classrooms through elementary school. And in sixth grade, one of the teachers would write an original play every year, and the students would produce this play as part of their sixth grade curriculum. And it was always interesting to watch students that maybe struggled in, academic courses would flourish on the stage, memorize the lead role, just not skip a beat. They just came alive in front of the camera, in front of the audience, So what you said, I couldn't agree with more, that it's just so important to provide lots of options for people in our community. And the great thing is in public schools, they really do have those options. So they can participate, anyone, regardless of their situation, can choose something that they enjoy and flourish through it. That's one of the beauties of public education.
Yeah, and I'm glad that things are being even better, right? As the years go by, more offerings are starting to appear, and it's really great. I mean, I hear all the stories that my sister tells me because she's still in the public school system, and it's so awesome to see all the different things that are available for anyone going to school right now, and I'm glad to see that. I mean, I'm glad to see that things are improving as time goes on, and they get these opportunities there as well. So with that being said, now that we're kind of on the subject of school, and we did briefly touch on the district, I know that you got elected to the Modesto City School Board in 2009, being that it was, we were still going through the recession, right? Because it basically just hit us the year before. How was it like, I mean, just joining the board and such a difficult time period post or, still recession, I guess you could still call it, in 2009?
Right. I mean, those were rough waters. It was very difficult because there was potentially budget cuts. And so there was a lot of community concern about some of these co-curricular programs being dropped. So we had a lot of public input regarding that. So it's kind of interesting. It's some things in the city that are similar to that. And that's why I'm so set on everything being done transparently and openly, because it's important for everyone to come and to be able to express their concerns, what's important to them and why, and also to hear from elected officials about their feelings about it and what they plan to do about it. So, of course, there was a lot of concern back then. We were able to navigate those waters. I feel like, that we did it well, and to preserve the programs that we felt were important for our students, and to keep teachers employed. And then soon after that, the whole funding formula in California was changed. So there was just a lot of transition that happened those years in education. And I was on the school board for 8 years, and I really did love every moment of it. It was just a great experience. And in many ways, it's a lot like this position in the city. I mean, a lot of what we did on the school board is similar with city government. There's contracts and even with the school board, we dealt with roads and building and construction and development and all of those issues. So there's some areas that really cross over, the difference being that on the school board, it was all to think of our 30,000 students and how it affected their parents and guardians and their well-being. So there's a lot of emotion involved in that. Parents and people that are responsible for children want to know that they're safe and that they're protected and that we have their best interest in mind when they are sent out the door every single day. When you think all day they're with our teachers and administrators, and it's important that we do the work that we did, and I'm proud of it. We raised our graduation rates considerably. We really took that to heart, and I'm proud of it. It was fun to be on the board. It was a very challenging. I put the time in, I put the work in, I did the reading, a lot of reading. That's one part of these jobs that a lot of people don't think of. There is a lot of reading to be up to speed with what's going on, and making sure before you sign something that you read it and really know what you're signing on to, because there's a lot of information. It's overwhelming, actually, sometimes.
Oh, well, that's really good that we have people like you guys, right? That can read all that, can make sure that we are making the best decision as we can make, right? Because like you said, right, there's a lot of things going on that year, and I can't imagine having to deal with a lot of challenges like that. But I'm really glad that things were thought well, right, and that. Fortunately, right, I mean, at the end of the day, we want all the teachers to still stay employed and for them not to lose, because losing one teacher can make a big difference, right, for one student. Because I know we were talking about it before we were recording, but my past guest that I just had on, actually, in this most recent episode that I did in episode 2, Lori, I mean, she made a big impact on my life. And I'm like, if she would have been one of those that would have been laid off, I just could not imagine not having her as a teacher, because she was really passionate really about what she did, right? She was a big influence, not just to me, but I know that to a lot more students, because she's had some students that have moved on. Now they're working for these amazing places. One of them even went to Harvard, another one to Stanford. So different things like that. It's like, it all kind of starts with those teachers who motivate you to get there, or even if they don't directly motivate you for that, I feel like you always have their voice in your mind, right? From how passionate they were with their career, and you want to basically mimic that with your own career field. So,
well, everyone makes a difference and an impact in someone's life. Words matter, words count. Even a look, a nod, reassurance can help a student be successful. And, really years before I even ran, I'm thinking about, I don't know, it was late 1990s. So maybe 10 years before I even ran for the school board, I read a lot of books about education. And I remember one in particular mentioned that through studies and data that they have, that even one adult person in a school can change the path of a student if they have a positive relationship with even that one person. So whether it's a certain teacher, a custodian, a coach, my husband coached for many years, decades, high school football. And, a coach can make a big difference in the lives of students. So, or say it's computer club or leadership, whatever it is, anything that you're interested in, that advisor or that teacher can, or a counselor can make a big difference. When I was in high school, one of my counselors was Jim Enochs, which Enochs High School is named after. He was a government teacher at Davis High School a few years before, and then he was a counselor when I was in high school, and he always had his door wide open. And I remember having a conversation with him one day about wanting to be a nurse and how encouraging he was. And as I said, his door was always open. So students just knew they could come and go. And now we know, Enochs High School, that's who it's named after. But that was when he was a counselor. He was eventually superintendent of schools for many years, Modesto City Schools. But people have a long history. And, what they say and what they do, even a comment like that can be meaningful to a girl like me in high school, to give me the courage to continue to apply to nursing school. And then I did become a nurse and worked in the emergency room for for over 40 years. So it makes a difference. So my being in this role is, I come here with a wealth of experience and interactions and relationships in our community that I know have made an impact. And I just hope that I can continue to do that in some way with the people that live in Modesto now.
Oh, well, you put it really well, right? The impact of one person, and you're an example of that as well, right? So that is really interesting. And I agree. I mean, it really does only just take one out of how many teachers, right, we have in high school, right? Which fortunately, I don't know how far it goes, the dates to when we started having multiple teachers in, middle school, junior high school, and high school. But really great that, we transitioned from elementary to these secondary schools afterwards. And we have that experience of not only just having one teacher, but having multiple ones. And again, hoping that one of those is the one that really connects with the student and makes a big impact in their life. And so I'm really glad that we have that system and that you get to,
Oh, I have to add too, I have some teachers that still support me to this day, write sweet little notes when I'm my third grade teacher, Joan Fisher. She always writes me a little note and she's always encouraged me. Miss Betty Ward, freshman year at Davis High School, 1968-69, always supports me in my campaigns. So these relationships are hugely impactful. They last many, many years for teachers that really are engaged and care. And there are so many of them. Louise Alberti, freshman. We were her first class at Davis High School. She's now long retired, but she was there for many, many years too. So, I could tell you some that have had an impact on my life throughout many, many years.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. I'm really glad to hear more of those stories, hear more people that have done that, because unfortunately, right, sometimes at home, you might not always get the best of example, right, for a lot of students out there too. And sometimes they really need that one person outside of their home, right, that can be the person who can say maybe hey, you can go to college. Like, you might be struggling, but guess what? You can make it there. And if you want to do this, then, hey, give it your all. You can do this, right? Because a lot of times I think students fall into that trap where you might feel like, oh, I don't think I could do that, or maybe I'm in the wrong spot to do that, or I don't have the family background, right, to maybe do that. But I mean, I could think the one example that always comes to mind is Jose Hernandez, right, who ended up, going to space of all things, right? And his background, I know plenty of people in that situation where they could have also said oh, we're just dreaming, right? Were you sleeping?
Right. Yes. I met Jose, and there are so many people that have stories like he does.
Yeah. So eventually,
really, they're remarkable. But there again, public education very often makes that possible, and good family support. It doesn't have to be connected to income or circumstance. That's obviously, there's a lot of research about that too that I've read, and we probably don't want to go off on that. And that helps. I do not deny that. To be in a stable income home is incredibly powerful. There's a lot of people that are very successful, and that's why it's so important to have people on school boards that believe that can happen, that believe that every child can be successful. Literally every single child can be successful, regardless of where they live or their situation. Some need a little bit of help along the way, but that does not matter where you live or what neighborhood you come from. We all need that encouragement and support to really be as successful as we can be.
Yeah, I have that same belief too. I think it doesn't matter what GPA you have. I mean, you could be a student that might have a 2.0 versus someone who might have a 4.0, but I think that, with the right motivation, with the right matter of, maybe teaching and all that, I think you can eventually get to that point where you can actually be at that level as well, right? You just need that motivation. You need that way of teaching. And sometimes, a teacher has to be more patient, right, with some of those students. But when you get the right teacher that does that, which to plug in Lori again too, she gave me a story in the last episode where she basically went through that. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, when you have a teacher that can be a little more patient with one student, right? Even if all the rest of the students might be at a different pace, and be able to say, wait, you know what? I want to fix this. I want to make sure that they understand this, because if they fail this class, even if it's just one student failing the class, I'm going to feel like I just failed, right? Like knowing that if it's just one student, I'm going to fail. I don't care if it's just one student. And having that mentality, I think, makes teachers really feel like I need to make sure that everyone is passing, that everyone is on the same page, that we all move forward together and not leave one person behind. So
right. I think that teachers and leaders are best if they are open to provide an atmosphere where people are encouraged to ask questions of things they don't understand. Multiple times a day, I'll say, I don't know what I don't know. Tell me what I don't know about this topic. Or when I was on the school board, tell me what I need to know or don't know about whatever the topic was. In the same way with city government, I'm new to this, right? I mean, that's obvious. I've spent my life as a mother and now grandmother, and I've been a nurse, and I've been on the school board. I have not been mayor before. So I very often say, tell me what I don't know about this. Educate me. And I've learned to do that through the years. And I find that that's really helpful to get information. And I think that it, gives people a message that even though I'm in this position now, I'm still learning. And I have a lot more to learn and to know and to grow and understand. And there's always not even just two sides to every story. There's usually 5, 6, 7, 8. And I've learned, another experience that I've had is being in the emergency room. Like when you asked about dealing with issues on the school board during the Great Recession, and now, with situations in our city, nothing is predictable. And that's what I've spent my career doing, is dealing with situations and patients. Their condition can change in half a second. And then, okay, now we have a new situation. What are we going to do to make it better? How are we going to help this patient recover? It can change like that. So, that's my world. That's my life. So I feel comfortable in that place. So whether it was school board or being mayor or raising children, whatever it is, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Speaking of dealing with change, right? I mean, we just had that just happen, and I mean, everyone had to face so many different challenges. But I do want to talk a little bit about, now that you mentioned, right, you worked in nursing for about 40 years, and I haven't really spoken to that many nurses and all that too, and especially in your circumstance, right? You weren't just in nursing, but you were in emergency room nursing. How was that like, right, when you first got started in nursing, like, how was it like? Because I mean, we all think emergency room and we're like, oh, that's got to be really chaotic. And just a few times I've had to go, I'm like, it's you have to be a little patient, I guess, right? Because there's so many people and a lot of people waiting, and almost like customer service in a retail world where you have to deal with so many different things going on in that waiting room.
Yes, it might seem like it would be chaotic to the outside world, but to those of us in the department, it's not, because that's what we're trained to do. And I would actually triaging in the waiting room was one of my specialties. I might say I feel like I kind of brought that to Modesto, and when we moved back in 1982, and that's when I started back here in the emergency room, and took a desk out in the waiting room and started making just lists on binder paper of who came in, what time they came in, And it evolved into now what is a massive triage system at the hospital. Now, I retired in October 2019, so I haven't been there through COVID. But it would seem chaotic, but there are systems in place, protocols in place. That's what we're trained to do, and is to care for patients that come in with whatever their emergent situation is. And I feel really grateful that we have the healthcare that we do in our community. People have benefited so greatly, and they don't even really realize it. But it's because of the work that's been done by nurses and physicians, and that make a profound difference in the quality of life of people in our community. It started, I remember when we first started with our trauma alert system to care for trauma patients, and it is a very precise system of the way things are done so that they can have the best outcome, hopefully be recovered and leave from the hospital. And then we developed for the same protocols for heart attack patients, and then now for stroke patients. And these are protocols that, and also now for sepsis, people that come in with infections that are potentially life-threatening. So there's protocols in place now that have proven data and statistics that if we do treat things a certain way, and that patients will have a much better outcome and hopefully much better quality of life and survive. Sometimes they wouldn't if we would not follow those protocols. So it seems chaotic, and there's a lot happening when you have a critically ill patient. A lot happening at one time. It may appear to the outside to be chaotic, but it's not. It's defined and calculated, and people are getting the treatment that they really need. So it was a great career. I loved every moment of that. And I'm still actually doing courses to keep my license current. A lot of reading again.
Well, that's really great. I'm really glad to hear that. It's just how it is to us on the outside, because you definitely do need everyone, right, to be a patient, I guess, right, for everyone to like maybe keep calm under those circumstances, because I know if I was under that, I feel like I would be under a lot of pressure, right? And I guess that's why some of us aren't meant for nursing, even though my mom really wanted me to get into like a medical field, but I just feel like I could not really be like that.
That's why I feel like that was a great experience to prepare me for elected office, to keep calm under pressure. And be able to think clearly under pressure, and to make good decisions under pressure. Those are all traits that are required for ER nursing as well as for elected office. So it feels very familiar to me.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, right? Because a lot of people might not think that you can relate things like that, but I mean, it really makes sense, right? It's like, and just in this case, the hospital is the city, and the patients are us here. So, I think the way
it's a team, such a team concept. In the emergency room, we have our ER physician, nurses, respiratory therapy, pharmacology, lab, people from the lab coming and drawing blood, orthopedic technicians, surgeons, private physicians coming in, just, a lot of moving parts, but we all really work together to take care of our patient that is on that bed that needs us at that moment. And it is a very similar, that's how I tackle issues, whether it was with the school district. I looked at each student individually. And I feel like that's really important for teachers also. And I think now for the city, it's the same concept that, really when I get emails from people or have conversations, it's one by one, listening to what their concerns are. That's what's important in the moment. And, people care here in Modesto. It's incredible how interested people are in our community and improving it. That's how I look at it. I don't, of course there's complaints and a lot of ideas. I've received lots and lots of suggestions and ideas, and they're all great. We just have to keep thinking and keep working hard to make it the best city it can be.
I'm glad to hear all that too, and I might have some suggestions as well too. I know we spoke about it offline. I'm really proud. But I guess what could we call ourselves, Modestonians? Or I've never really heard a terminology for for us here too, but us Modesto people.
Modestans, however you want to say it.
I think yeah, there's a lot of things, and I have noticed a lot of different improvements. Right, as the years go by, we see more development, more business coming to town, interesting businesses, and all that. But kind of going back to this topic, I mean, yeah, it's really, I mean, it's. I think once you kind of think about it, it's like, yeah, all these different things are basically the same thing, right? Education, healthcare, running a city.
Mhm.
It's all just about like just having a lot of moving parts, everyone being able to coordinate with each other and really having all that piece together too. It's like it's not really all that different, right? You're just dealing with other situations, but the whole idea of all these things being like functional parts, right, in like an overall system, it's the same thing. So I'm
Yes, it is.
really
You just triage, like identify what the problem is, with your patient, whether they're breathing, whether their heart's beating, how their body is functioning. It's really very similar processes in dealing with issues in the city and problems and situations a lot of times that people find themselves in. And city services, we don't provide healthcare services, technically, or behavioral health, those kinds of things. But there's just a lot of connections with how our city functions. So it's a really great experience. And that's one reason why I did it. I mean, I knew when COVID-19 hit in March 2020, I just retired. And I thought, this is a perfect time to do this because I knew we were in for the long haul. I knew we were. And here we are. So I'm really grateful that I did it. I needed something to sink my teeth into. I just retired from ER nursing. With the worldwide pandemic, I knew that this was going to go for a long, long time. So I thought, let's just dive in. Let's do it. Never a better time for a nurse to run for office than during the midst of a worldwide health crisis.
Yeah, that's actually how I saw it. Right when I found out you were a nurse, I was like, yes, she's gonna understand exactly what's going on with the situation that we're going through. Hands down, I'm so thankful for everyone who decides to go down the path of the medical field because I'm like, hey, you guys are the real heroes and being, like I said earlier, right, being like patient, being okay with dealing with all these situations all at once. I'm like, thank you so much to everyone who is already in that field, has been in that field, is thinking about joining that career field. Yeah, I'm like, nothing
Right.
but thanks from
in third grade. So there again.
Yeah, I'm like that. Thank you. Yeah, to everyone out there.
I wanted to be a nurse, so I just knew that's what I wanted to do. So
it's really awesome that people decide to go that route because we need more people that are really passionate about what they do, right? And especially when you're in the medical field. I mean, I think out of all the careers out there, if there's anyone that you need people who are really enjoying what they do and really truly want to help others, which I've been pretty lucky that I've had some that happen that way, but I have had some experiences where I've had some practitioners that, it just seems like they don't really particularly enjoy it. Like maybe they were in my case where their parents told them, hey, I want you to do this. And instead of telling them, no, I feel like I want to do this instead, they went that route. So I'm like, the more people that are like in your situation where it's something that you already know, it's not something that, your parents told you to do and you're kind of doing it just to please them.
Not at all. That was not the case. And my husband's a dentist also for 40 years. He graduated in 1981 and loves it. Still just loves it. Loves doing general dentistry and taking care of families and patients. And so it makes a difference for sure when you really want to do it.
Oh, that's great. I can imagine your kids, if they ever had like a toothache or like any other health situation, it was like they knew who to go to. They had someone they can ask. That's
yeah,
really...
they get tired of my stories for sure, but As soon as they would say something about mom, that can't happen, I'd be like, oh, yes, it can. Do you want me to tell you what I saw today? It can happen. So, do not start your car without your seatbelt on. Those kinds of things.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's
Right.
good.
So that was, yeah. I took care of patients, I remember, that were in a parking lot that, in a parking lot, hadn't put their seatbelts on yet and ran into a big cement post.
Oh,
it wasn't
ouch.
Pretty. They were okay, but I mean, their faces were, multiple lacerations and things on their face. There was no internal injuries, but if you think you're going to wait till you get in the street, you better put it on before you start moving. So they'd kind of look at me like, oh, here mom goes again with her stories. And I'm like, well, you can learn the hard way if you would like, but it happens. So.
Oh yeah. It's like you definitely don't want to go that route. I know in terms of dentistry, now that we kind of mentioned dentistry, I know I learned the hard way when you get a root canal done. So if anyone doesn't want to just make sure you get those cleanups done each year, because I learned the hard way having it done.
Things are pretty simple, floss and brush, right? I mean, I thank goodness I have a dentist in the family, because since child, I'm definitely a sweet eater, but I do know the importance of brushing. But it's with COVID-19 too. I wouldn't want to wrap this up in any way, shape, or form without saying the guidelines are really not that confusing. We know that masking makes a difference. 6 feet apart makes a difference. I call it physical distancing, not social distancing, because we can still interact. Just keep our distance and wash our hands and then get vaccinated.
Oh yeah. And we're
pretty straightforward.
The way I like to also say it too, in terms of the vaccines, it's like you look at other countries and we're so fortunate, right, to be able to have such a supply and such like an immediate way of just getting your vaccine so quick. Whereas, it's sad to me to see other countries where people can't get the vaccine yet, right? And they're still basically going through all the times that we went through last year, and you hear more cases going on over there, and it's like, it's unfortunate for them. And here, when we have all this supply, it's like, let's make sure everyone try to use it, right? Let's get rid of this and let's put it in the past. And
yeah, it's tragic when you read about it. Having said that, I understand that every individual may have their own concerns about it, and I've done some research about that and the psychology of it also. And it's been my experience too in the emergency room that it's important for healthcare providers to explain to patients about the vaccination and why it's important and potential symptoms, and to talk that through so that people feel comfortable with what they're doing. So it's very easy to say things are simple, but when we're talking about human beings, it's, every person has their history, their experience, what they've heard in the media, from family, rumors, whatever. So I just, I encourage everyone to talk to health professionals and get the facts and make their own decisions. But clearly vaccinations have saved so many millions and millions and millions of lives throughout so many years. For children with polio, I was one of those that went and got the little sugar cube that you read about now in history with the drops. I remember my mother taking to me right over here by the junior college, the building. I still remember standing in line and getting that. But, I have friends now that are still suffering from the effects of polio back then. So it's very real, shortened limbs and scratchy voices from when they had, a tracheotomy. I'm sure just, there's people that are my age or a little older that are still living with the effects of that. And it's difficult, and it can be prevented.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So COVID, we don't, and now, COVID, we already know there's long-term effects, and this is a whole new disease. So there again, I really encourage people to get vaccinated, but also if they're concerned about it, to talk to others and talk to healthcare professionals and get the facts, get real data.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you there. Like everyone needs to really talk to their medical professional that they work with, and just to so they really know everything, right? I mean, if you have anything that might cause you to have like a reaction, all that, get the information. I know when I got my second dosage, the next day I was having some symptoms of like, a cold, but it only lasted for 1 day. But I had already been told that. So it wasn't like a shocker, right? Like, whoa, what's going on?
Right. And a lot of people just have, some people have the fear of just the fact of waiting in line, anticipating that injection. They get anxiety and really fearful. And it's very real. And I know I saw one post on Twitter of a friend of mine, and she just came out with it that she just didn't think she could do it. And so she took two friends with her to support her and to be there with her and to help her get through that. So intellectually, she knew it was what she should do and how important it was. But she was just honest with herself that she was very anxious about it, very nervous. And that's part of our humanity. We all have different challenges. And I've certainly have seen that in the emergency room where, people are really afraid of a lot of procedures. And sometimes they will delay coming in because of that. But once I explain that we have ways of taking care of it, and there's pain medication and sedation and other ways to deal with that, then they're less afraid and they relax, and it goes smoothly. Or whether it's a mother, that's coming in to deliver her first child. There's all these experiences that we have in life. And for some people, it's getting an injection. And my husband with dentistry, for sure. I have friends that have told me, he did not share it with me, but they would tell me they just sob prior to going to the dentist. Like every time they would just like uncontrollably sob, and they would tell me how he was so patient and understanding or whatever. So everybody has situations that make them uptight or nervous or anxious. So as healthcare providers, it's our job to help alleviate that as much as possible. And hopefully people will feel more comfortable and get their vaccines so that we can live safely and securely in our society without having to be so concerned with passing that disease on to one another.
Yeah, that very, very well said. And I do agree. Anyone in the healthcare field, if you are really passionate about what you do and you really are sympathizing with people, because like you said, right, there's different circumstances. Some people are more anxious than others. Others are like, hey, I'm just go for it, right? Like no worries. And even if they're not like that, right, because you might not know right away, they might be hiding their emotions, right? They might be hiding how they're feeling. And
sure.
Doing all those things is good. And I could think of this last time I just got a cleanup at my dentistry, and the hygienist was like super nice with any little thing, and I wasn't like being anxious. It was just a cleanup, and there was no problem or anything. But she kept reassuring me like, okay, you might feel this, you might feel that. Hey, if you just feel like anything hurts, let me know. I'll stop right away. So super patient. Telling me like all these different things, and it was just a cleanup. So
right.
Yeah.
I have family members that walk even into a hospital, they feel like they're going to faint. That's just their reaction. It's a physiological reaction. So if someone has that going on, how are they going to wait 2 hours in line to get a vaccination if they're the whole time they're feeling like they're going to pass out? Mm-hmm. So it's like, there again, like you said, being honest and open with how each of us feels, and then getting the support to get through it so that we can, accomplish what we really want to. And yeah, I know that it does make a big difference when you have a hygienist or a nurse that takes the time to explain everything, reassure you that it's, we're going to get through this, and this is what you're going to feel. And I even very often with pediatric patients would do that. If I just take a few extra minutes and explain to them, like if they needed an IV or something like that, this is what it's going to feel like, and I'm not going to do anything without explaining to you first. There will be no surprises. it really helps. So I think potentially, we know that there's some people apparently that are not going to be vaccinated no matter what, but there's a lot of people that probably have concerns that if they're reassured and have all of their questions answered, might be more likely to consider it and to do it.
Yeah, it's just really, really great that, we do have some of those people out there, and people need to know that. I think when you're getting into that career field, and I don't know exactly where maybe it's not something that you teach, right? It's just like, I feel like it's more like just common sense, I think, as a career profession or anything, right? Especially if it is something that you like to do, is to know that, you're dealing with a human being who has emotions, and you might also have your own emotions. So I think people need to put themselves in their shoes and just, just be nice, right? I mean, when it comes down to it,
well, like a lot of what you said is it's common sense, but we are taught that in nursing school.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. To be aware of all these possible scenarios. And some people may feel this way about a certain procedure. Some may look at it this way. Cultural sensitivity, and different cultures look at different procedures in different ways. Genders look at different procedures in different ways, and Western versus Eastern civilization, whatever. So we are taught that in nursing school. Granted, basic empathy. My parents were both, very loving, sensitive, kind individuals. So were my grandparents that I mentioned in the beginning, lived here locally, just very honest, sensitive, intuitive people, I felt like. And so that was my environment that I was raised in. I'm sure that helped. But we do learn about a lot of different approaches to certain treatments in nursing school also. My program in particular, I went to nursing school right after high school in Oakland at what was Samuel Merritt Hospital. It was a 3-year diploma school, and it was clinically focused. So it was the clinical patient experience. We received almost twice as many hours as I think most nursing students did at the time in the hospital with patients and with close instructor supervision. So I felt really grateful that I had that experience, a lot of clinical experience before I graduated, and especially being in the Bay Area too, because we took care of, I did my pediatric training at Children's Hospital in Oakland. So I took care of very ill children and a lot of different circumstances that they lived in, very challenging circumstances for some of the children. And so it was good that I had that experience and was able to bring that back to Modesto.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can imagine, right? I mean, there's a lot, of course, you're a lot more busier, right, being in the Bay Area. And so it's great. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we can learn from the Bay Area too, and bring that back over here.
Like I said, in certain areas, we've become that. We have specialized enough that we don't have to transfer people to the Bay Area. So I'm proud of that. Children, we're so fortunate that we have Oakland Children's, we have Madera Valley Children's down in Madera, and then in Sacramento area too. There's children's hospitals, and we have a burn center in UC Davis, I believe it is, in Sacramento. And so it's, we just have a lot of specialty treatments close by. And now we know the importance of getting people there sooner than later. So we just have streamlined a lot of procedures and protocols to make sure that people get the best treatment possible with ultimately the best outcome. That's always what we're looking towards. So we know that a lot of those decisions are made very early on in patients' diagnoses. And so now we're taking that action sooner than later. So it's really exciting. Right now, it's an exciting time to be involved in whatever we are in life. Things are changing so rapidly with technology. And, imagine this, right? I did my whole campaign on Zoom, literally an entire political campaign on Zoom. And people thought it would be impossible. It's not impossible. You can interact just like this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just like we're recording now, it works out good. And Yeah, it's crazy, right? How many things you could do on Zoom. And actually, speaking of that, to segue into our last topic of today, is actually just right on that, right? Right, as you mentioned before, of course, you made the decision to run for campaigning, right? Right when the pandemic was starting to, and doing your campaign out through Zoom. Walk us through how was it through like the whole campaign, and I mean, I know you had to like basically, I think, and I guess goes for anyone who was running for any political office, you had to basically reinvent, right, what was a campaign, and be like, all right, well, let's step back and let's see how can we do all the things that were normal things to do in a campaign, but now in this new world where we can't be like holding events in person and all that. How was all that like, and the organization of all that?
In some ways, it was more convenient because I could sit right here in my kitchen like I am right now and go from one thing to the next rapidly. On the flip side, it's like that's kind of the way it was. Like one meeting ended and then you were right on to another one. At least before, there would be traveling time, stop and grab a Coke along the way, whatever, but now the expectations were, a meeting at 3, a meeting at 4, a meeting at 5. So there was really a lot going on. It was really, really busy, as campaigns are. And on another level, it was convenient because I could have notes in front of me that maybe I wouldn't always have in person. So that was helpful in some ways. Although most of the time, it's this kind of interview, like my questions from you are not given ahead of time. So this is just speaking from my heart and from my soul, and as the thoughts come to me. And there was a lot of that also on Zoom because we didn't know what people were going to ask. But we did everything that we could by email and by snail mail, of course, which flyers and those mailers are very, very expensive. But we organized it all on Zoom meetings. I really only had 2 live events, and they were physically distanced. So we wore masks to enter and then just took our masks off when we spoke, and we were physically distanced, but only 2. And typically there would be, maybe 4 or 5 of those a day, meeting after meeting after meeting on Zoom. It just was done on Zoom instead of in person. So that's how that went. Now, I mean, granted, there's a component that you lose without the human touch and, personal eye contact. But I think that overall, people seem to understand the thought behind the message. And regardless of whether you're in person or on Zoom, you have 1 minute to answer it. And you give the best response that you can in that 1 minute. When you think about that, talking about topics that we could spend literally hours on, and you have 30 seconds sometimes to respond. It's pressure packed there again. But as I said, with my experience in the ER, I always operated under pressure. And when you've got a child in front of you that's lifeless, you have a few seconds to make that decision about what's next, what you're going to do. And then there's a lot of things that happen really quickly. So I lived in that environment my entire life, pretty much. So I feel like I was able to recover under stressful moments, and just did the best that I could and answered as honestly as I could, and with my own experience that I've had in my life. So I was very fortunate to win this. It was a runoff, I'm not sure if you're aware of that. So then that was interesting because in November, the money was gone, but it was a brand new election now. So it was like we did the election up until November, and then had to start an entirely new election. So it was really like two separate campaigns back to back. So it's a lot of hours in a day, a lot of time, a lot of money that has to be raised. it's very expensive to run campaigns. So we did it, and I had a great team helping me with it. And my family is very supportive. And my husband, we are opposite politically, but he supports me in my goals and my dreams and my desires. So I'm very thankful for that. And just grateful for the votes that I received from every person that voted for me.
That's awesome. I'm really glad when I see people with different political beliefs, right? But still showing that, like, hey, we can put politics aside, right? At the end of the day, we're human beings, and we all have our own things. And there's a lot of things that, like, we agree on that maybe the opposition party would agree on as well. And so I think it's really knowing, right, that things can still work out. And I'm glad that's the case. I mean, we want to hear more of that.
And it's just remarkable, I mean, people follow these campaigns locally. And I had people that would just volunteer to plant my signs. So we'd get request after request, several, like hundreds of requests for my yard signs. People wanted a yard sign. And then there would just be a crew through email that would say, yes, I'll deliver yard signs. So they would come and pick them up from my front porch. They'd have the list by email. All of this was done. No direct contact, no touch, right? We're in a worldwide pandemic. And then they'd go out and plant those signs. So, people want to get interested in the campaign, but they don't really maybe want to walk precincts, or they don't want to talk on the phone, because there's lots of phone calling that has to happen for support. All those things you can offer, which I've decided that when I'm done running for office, I want that job because I love to drive around town. So I'm going to just sign up to deliver signs, and I'll go plant yard signs. It's a job that needs to be done. And it's so helpful. So there's so many things and so many people that got involved in my campaign. It's just impossible to express appreciation to all of them, the volunteer time, and in the midst of a pandemic, when a lot of people could have just said, I'm not going anywhere, I'm not doing anything. But hey, they can pick up signs from my front porch and plant them on a yard, and no touch, grab a little hamburger along the way and milkshake and call it a day. Make the best of it. So I was very fortunate to have that support.
Wow. That's
all of the endorsement groups, that was all done on Zoom, just, arranged ahead of time. And the interviews were by Zoom. So thank goodness for technology.
Yeah, that's actually, it's kind of funny. I was thinking about that last year while we were all working from home, right? Dealing with all this. I was like, imagine if this would have happened, 20, 30 years ago, right? When we didn't really have anything, right? That we couldn't work from home. We couldn't do anything of this. Like how much more of a challenge, right? That would have been just for everyone, right? I can't even imagine the public school system, as we talked about that earlier, and how much that would impact them, right? And
right. Well, the thing is, everything probably would, and so much of it was really previously in my growing up years, just by mail and what you read in the paper. And then maybe, for the presidency, debate, one or two debates for president of the United States. Oh, goodness. That's another thing. It helps to see people's body language. People can tell, I think, if you're sincere. There's a lot to be said for being able to see people's body language. Some can fake it. And in mailers, people can say whatever they want. I'm an honest person. So everything I put out there was important to me and honest. But anything can be printed. But you really have to know the person. And that's what's so difficult, right? To really know people's intentions. What do they really want? What's really important to them? How do they treat people when no one's looking? Those kinds of things, That's the person I would love to get to know and vote for, but it's impossible, right? For most offices. So with mayor, I've lived my life here. So I think people know me, they know who I am, and I love this city and want to make it the best I can possibly make it in the short time that I have in this position.
That's awesome, and I'm really glad to hear that. And I do agree. I think as with mayor and I think just in general, not just maybe speaking here on our hometown, but just in general with any place, right? I think it should always be someone who is very well familiar with the area, right? Someone who grew up in the area, knows the issues, the circumstances, all the things that are going on, and what are some things that we need to improve on. What is all that? And I think more and more people kind of see that, and that's one of the things that I saw with you when I was looking at all the different candidates. And you like to see that. You like to see someone who grew up here in the area and has worked all of her life here. There's different connections you formed around town, and all the things that are going on, and you very well do, right? From school to healthcare. I mean, those two are major components of our area, and being able to say like I understand all the things that have happened in both the different places. I mean, that I feel like that prepared you the most, and I'm really glad that you put in the work to it too, and now you're able to bring all that knowledge with you to us too, and hoping to see, right, all the different amazing things that are going to be happening here in my hometown. As I said, I'm really proud of my hometown. I think there's a lot that can be done here, and really excited that. And I'll be sharing some ideas that I've just had over time, just growing up here, and different questions. I actually do have a lot of questions that I've never had someone to ask them to, right? Because I've never really spoken. You're actually the first person I'm speaking to in an elected office in my city. So a lot of questions there that I might have, and I'm really glad that you got the chance to hop on the podcast. I mean, this is really amazing, being that it's my third episode. Having the mayor of my hometown is truly a big honor to me to be able to say that. And again, I'm really excited for what's to come here in my hometown, especially knowing that it's in very well hands. And I don't know too much about the past mayors, and I do have to admit part of it was that I used to not take too much of an interest in like anything city in the past. But I think after what happened in recent years and all that, I became more like immersed in the world of like, oh, let me see what's going on in the city. And a friend of mine ran for city council, and she was elected. So I was like, this sounds a little more interesting. Let me learn more about it. And I'm at that point now where I think sometime, and I don't know what that office will be, I actually want to say that I at least make the effort of running for whatever it is. And no matter what the outcome is, I just want to experience that, because I did actually do that when I was at Stanislaus State, and fortunately didn't win, but I was like about 10 votes short. I could have done a lot more in terms of campaigning and all that, but I wasn't really too familiar with how all that worked all that well. So I do want to someday take the chance at running for some sort of local office here in town. And so thank you so much for kind of inspiring me more for that.
Well, I hope that I did, and I encourage you to do that and to get involved even more. And we have 6 other council members, so they would be great for you to interview also and get a flavor of what we all bring to the table. They're very dedicated council members. So I encourage you to reach out to them also, and appreciate your kind words. It means a lot to me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and like I said, thank you so much for being on here, for being on the show. I think you are the perfect example of someone who grew up in our area, who knows a lot about our area, and who is going to be even making sure that it's a really great place for anyone to be here. Great. Well, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you spending the time here with me on the podcast, and hope to have you back on sometime soon, maybe when I'm celebrating 100 episodes, which I'm gonna keep going at it, and we'll have you back on if you have some time in the future.
Sure, just let me know. Happy to do it.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, have a good rest of your Sunday. And
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much again to Zwahlen for being here on the show. As I said earlier, truly an honor to have the mayor of my hometown on as a guest and as a third guest here on the show. I mean, I could not have imagined that I would be speaking to the mayor of my hometown, which, like I said earlier, right? I've never spoken to anyone in any position, city council, anything like that, let alone someone who is now our mayor. So really great stuff. I could have never imagined, just in general, I think before I became a podcaster, ever imagining that I would be speaking to our mayor here in my hometown. And I'm really glad that she took the time out of her really busy day to spend on here on the show. Really great stuff. Really super excited about that, and really great interview. I mean, it's so amazing how much she's done in her career and all the amazing things that she is going to bring to this position, and being able to be patient, right? And being able to work under different challenges, which, like we said, right, last year was full of different challenges. And, just in general, right? I mean, it could have not been last year. It could have just been any other year without like a challenging year as it is. The position of mayor is a challenging one, right? I mean, it's no easy feat to have to manage a city, a town. It doesn't matter what you're managing. I mean, it's no easy feat to be in that role and go through all that. And so I'm really glad to know that my hometown is in very good hands, and really, just really happy to know that. And so we might have her back on the show sometime whenever we're celebrating episode anniversary 50th, 100. I'm thinking of some ideas as I speak now on what I can do whenever I get to that point. But we are definitely going to be having some of the guests that we have on the show back on. So if you really enjoyed listening to all the guests that we've had now and that we will have in the future, be on the lookout, because I do want to do a anniversary special of some sort where we have them back on and we hear how things are going for them at the time being when we record that, of course. And so really, really excited about this. So I got to say thank you so much to everyone who has listened to this podcast. It's really awesome. I'm really thankful. Anytime I go back on my analytics and I'm able to review how many listens I get per day, how the episodes are doing, and which, this is just my third episode. It's really awesome. And as I like to say, and I've mentioned it in one of my other podcasts in the past, I appreciate anytime I see that I have, even if it's just a handful of listens, whenever I get to see that, which a lot of the times is within maybe a couple hours after posting an episode. It's really awesome to me to see that regardless if an episode gets to so many listens or it would only have a handful of listens, like I'm still appreciative. It doesn't matter what. And I really appreciate each and every one of you who takes the time out of your busy day to listen to an episode that I have on here. And I invite you to listen to other episodes if you'd like. I am going to be having future guests, again, all centered around people who grew up in the 209 or who moved to the 209. And I'm interested in hearing their story, right? Why is it that they moved? What are they doing now? And so that's all this podcast is about. I want to show the world that we have a lot of amazing people who grew up here in the 209 and who have decided to make the 209 their home, or at one point made the 209 their home, and now they're living elsewhere. So really super excited to have a lot more amazing guests on the show. And so if you subscribe to the podcast, you'll be notified whenever I post new episodes, which I'm doing my best at hopefully doing every Tuesday as a schedule. I know right now I've been doing like every other Tuesday. It's almost like every 2 weeks, but my plan is to do an episode that is posted every Tuesday. So for anyone who wants to have a schedule down, I understand, and I want to make it to the point where every Tuesday you can look forward to an episode. So I am working on that. I really want to make that work out. So every Tuesday you can open your podcast platform and you can see a new episode on there and be able to listen to it. So that's one of my goals of this podcast, is to have that done. And so with that being said, by the way, if any of you out there listening right now know someone who could be a guest on the show, or if you yourself listening right now would like to be a guest on the show, please feel free to send me a message on either our Facebook or Twitter page and let me know your story, right? Let me know what it is that you'd like to share. And, we'll get you scheduled here on the show, and, we'll do an interview just as I've done here now, and with this being the third one. And yeah, let's talk. Again, I'm interested in talking to people from different professions out there in the 209. So I want to get a variety of different ones out there so we can highlight so many different stories. And so please send that message and I'll have you on here. And again, thank you so much to everyone who has been following our social media pages. I really appreciate it. And again, really excited to share with you all the amazing content that I have planned for everyone. Well, once again, thank you so much to everyone for listening to this show. And you will hear me next time here on the 209 Journey podcast. Have a great day, everyone.